Welcome back to the Strength and Speed Podcast. I'm your host, Conquer the Gauntlet Pro, Evan Preparis, and joining me I have Brenna Calvert on the line. Brenna, say hi.
Hey, everybody. Glad to have another just me and Evan episode. It'll be fun.
Yeah, like Brenna said, this episode is just me and Brenna. We're going to go over some of the races we've done this year, some of our off-season training, how it's been going, and kind of give you a highlight of, kind of what's coming up for the rest of the year. So before we get to that, though, let's get a word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Elite Ops Energy Strips. So if you're not familiar with Elite Ops Energy Strips, they're very much like the Listerine strips, right? It's like a minty flavored strip you put on your tongue, and it's got 100 milligrams of caffeine in it. So you take that either before a race or before a workout, and it gives you that boost of caffeine without anything extra to sit in your stomachs or any additional calories. So for those of you trying to, keep your calorie intake low, is a great option. Or I like to use them. I like to buy just a bunch of regular gels and then have the Elite Ops Energy Strips in addition to it, so I can either just have a regular gel plus a strip if I want caffeine, or just have a normal gel. So, Brenna, you ever use the Elite Ops Energy Strips?
You brought some and shared at a race, I believe, I think last season, and I like them just like pre-race because I know I've tried caffeine, different gum and things like that, and I just don't want the lingering in my mouth. So the strips are nice because it's real quick, and then it goes away and gives you the little caffeine you need. So I definitely recommend them if that's something you're interested in trying.
Yeah, so they come in a couple different packs. I have like a little rubber thing that sticks to the back of my phone that allows me to carry them wherever. And I travel a lot, so I think they're awesome for travel because you don't have to carry if you like taking pre-workout stuff, you don't have to carry like a big jug. You can essentially carry a couple of these strips and you're good to go. And then other than that, they are safety sealed, so it would be very hard for your child to get into them and eat a whole bunch. And then last note, they do contain 100 milligrams of caffeine, which is like a cup of coffee. So if you're real caffeine sensitive, that might bother you. But if you want to order some, code SS10 gives you 10% off. Check them out. Military veteran owned, and they are a sponsor of Endure the Gauntlet. All right, let's get to it. Let's start talking about our off season and how our season's been going so far. So Brenna, let's start off with you with your off season. How was your off season? From January, or I guess it would be November through March-ish. How did that go for you?
Well, so I feel like off season went forever, and for me, I can get into it in a little bit. It's still kind of happening, but very different from yours and many others. I started off season good and, had a good rest after the full season and build and everything. And then, did some recovery, resting, hanging out. And unfortunately, when I got back into just off season training, we were at the first CTG Pro Team takeover at Conquer Fitness in Tulsa. And during the partner workout, I rolled my ankle pretty bad. And, that was basically, I think, beginning mid-December, and it took me out for a while just because I wanted to recover properly from it, being the off-season. No need to rush that, and I've had bad ankles before, but it wound up being a way longer thing than I anticipated, and, it wasn't broken or anything, let's just say that, but the effects lasted, and then, long story short, I hit the first winter in Kansas ever that I've lived here that's new to me, and it was miserably cold, and training just fell off, so off-season was kind of rough. I had a slow start. Usually I start racing early and, go heavy, but I've only done maybe 5 races so far this season, and for me that's kind of on the slower side, so we'll get into the races that I've done, but I'm just trying to find my groove again, and I'm working on the mental side of everything right now, so, and physical training at the same time. But right now I'm trying to get in the head game of wanting to be back in it. So it's kind of different than most people I think are experiencing at this time. But Evan, I'm sure yours is the complete, like I said, opposite end of my off season.
Well, I mean, not quite. I think also your off season goes to show that like even people who are very good at the sport have, they have ruts and they have flunks, and sometimes not everyone on every day is like, yes, I get to go out and train today, right? Like that's normal to have ups and downs. So I think everyone has to talk themselves into training sometimes. So I think that's completely normal, and I think it's a good thing to share.
Yeah, I've been better at sharing it, and that was kind of the thing, was like I was not doing the whole like fake posts that made it sound like I was doing more. I just wasn't being social or talking much, and people started to realize like, hey, what's going on? Like I just haven't been training, you haven't been feeling it. So talking about it and letting others know that like, hey, that happens. A lot of people have said how, wow, they didn't realize that someone that trains and races all season can get like that. I'm like, oh yeah, definitely. It happens to everybody.
Even though my schedule doesn't look like I was in a little bit of a funk, but I was spending a little more time with my family, and then on the personal side, one of my grandmothers died, so right, like that kind of puts a damper on training. So I felt like some of my off-season training was a little bit off. Although I did get in some good early off-season races at the beginning of the year. So we'll talk about those a little bit. So I did like 3 ultras kind of in the beginning of the year, where I was very not concerned about time. I didn't really take a taper much beforehand. I used it as a high mileage week, so I tried to train through the races. I did the Triple D 50K up in Iowa, which was like a flat, just 50K race. Kept a real consistent pace. I think I was running, was I running an hour and a half for every 10 miles, and just like dead on splits. So I think I finished in 4:30 total, and finished second place. So that was cool. That was actually my first straight ultra podium. Even though it was a small race, but that was nice.
Wow, nice.
Yeah. I also did the Psycho Wyco 50K in Kansas City. That was just a complete mud bath. If you go back to I think it was in March or February, I can't even remember now. If you go back to my Instagram post, there's the course just kept getting, it was a 10-mile loop, 3 laps, and the course just kept getting worse. I was wearing ice bugs, and I was still slipping. It was a complete mess.
So that was OCR, though?
No, that was just straight, straight trail race. So another training event, yeah.
Yeah, I like how you say you just put in a couple races at the beginning of the season, when that's like more miles than I know I put in a season, but like most people. Your first 3 races have covered more mileage than most, so.
Well, yeah, I have different goals. I'm ultra OCR focused. I'm focused on toughest mudder, and I'm focused on Endure the Gauntlet, right? So your body needs to build up to that. You can't just jump into those things, And I've been doing this for a couple of years, so I know what a 50K does to my body, and I also don't push myself that hard, right? Like, it sounds funny, but like I go for the 30-mile run, and I just kind of coast, and I try not to get caught up in the race, because it's very easy, especially if it's a small race and you're doing well, to be like, oh, I'm going to run this guy down, and be like, you got to be like, all right, hold back a little. This is just training. It doesn't, you have to remember, like, it doesn't count for anything, or at least, in my mind, it doesn't count for anything. So, yeah.
Getting your head right for it.
Yeah. And then the other one I did, which was more of a mental test, well, it was mental and physical, was I signed up for this thing called the Treadmill 100, or the Treadmill Challenge. So I'm in some ultra running community, and someone had posted it in there, and they said, you sign up for this thing. It's a virtual event, and you have 48 hours, and you can do it essentially whenever you want. And the clock starts when you get on the treadmill, and it stops 48 hours later. And over that 48-hour period, you have to run 100 miles. So you can do it any way you want. I mean, you can get on the treadmill and just slog out 100 miles right away. You can break it into 10-mile increments. You can break it into hour. You write whatever method you want. I saw that. It looked like the worst idea ever. And then I thought about it for like 48 hours, and then I was like, yeah, this is a bad idea. I'm going to do it. So, so I signed up for it. The actual event was in December, but it didn't fit into my training schedule, so I emailed the race director, and I was like, hey, can I do it in February? And she was like, yeah, that's no problem, but you won't be listed in the official results, but I'll still send you a buckle. And I was like, all right, that's cool. Just just trying to log some training miles here. So I started on a Friday. I did about 20 miles in the gym at work. And then I went to like the local gym near my house, did another 5 miles, went home, had dinner, went into my garage, did another 10 miles or something like that. And I ended up doing, it was something like 35 miles Friday, 40 miles Saturday, and then what does that leave me? 25 miles Sunday morning. So I hit 100 in about 44 hours. So.
It was awful watching.
So it was awful. It was about as awful as you'd expect. The first day actually was not bad because I don't know. You just kind of you get into the zone, and my legs are still feeling pretty fresh. So first day was not bad. Saturday and Sunday we kept getting progressively worse, right? Because you wake up the next day and realize you have to do it all over again. And also like initially when I start doing the math, like you forget how long it's going to take you to run each of those like segments. So really like I ended up running for an hour or so, hour to 2 hours. I'd get off the treadmill, have a snack, like lay down for a bit, and then like get back up and just repeat. Like that's what I did all weekend. It was mind numbing also. Like, you're not moving anywhere. To counteract some of that, things I did were I would switch treadmills. So again, I use the treadmill at work, I use the treadmill at the gym near my house, and I use my personal treadmill. So even just changing treadmills to like a different environment, even though you're still not moving anywhere, definitely made it a little bit mentally easier. And then other than that, I had my phone on me, so I'd watch YouTube clips, and I tried to watch some movies, but they didn't really pan out yet very well. I mostly watch YouTube clips to kind of take my mind off the suffering.
Yeah, okay, for those that complain about getting on the treadmill, I mean, just imagine doing 100 miles on the treadmill.
Part of that is I was trying to, now I can announce it, but I was trying to prep for Endure the Gauntlet. So I'm going to run 48 hours for Endure the Gauntlet. I use that term loosely, run. And I wanted to make sure, I've done other things that are endurance related over several days, but I wanted to make sure that I could do consistent running over a 48-hour period. And running on a treadmill is mentally exhausting. I mean, I think we've all experienced that at least at one point or another. And in my mind, if I could do this, that would kind of build some mental resiliency. So then come August when I'm at Conquer the Gauntlet Tulsa running multi-laps, I can look back and be like, well, at least I'm not on a treadmill. At least I'm outside. So some of my logic behind that.
There you go.
And that is... And so for anyone's curious or anyone else thinks that they have a really strong desire to make a terrible life choice, I think she opened up another Treadmill 100. So if anyone's interested, shoot me a message and remind me, and I'll try to share the link to the Strength and Speed Facebook page. Cool. Yeah, all the money goes to charity. Can't remember what the charity is off the top of my head. Do you remember, Brenna?
Oh, man, I remember reading it. No, I'm going to fail you on that one.
Okay. It was some disease. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. Alzheimer's, maybe? I think it's Alzheimer's.
Wow, then I really should remember that. Well,
yeah, because when I commented about what the charity was for, you said someone in your extended family had suffered from it. Yeah, I can't remember what it was.
Then it would be Alzheimer's. So.
All right then. Yeah, that's why I asked, and that's why I figured you would know. Okay, no worries.
Yeah. So that was your 3 little start of the season, I guess, right? And that takes you to March, correct?
Yep, and then it gets into finally OCR season. Although I did do one OCR, which we already talked about, the Abominable Snow Race up in Wisconsin in January. But then April started actual OCR season with Terrain Race Tulsa. So Brenna, you were there. What were your thoughts on Terrain Race Tulsa?
So that was the beginning, my OCR season, basically the first thing I was doing. I went purely for fun, just because Terrain Race to me is more, they do an elite wave. It's more fun than super competitive or super challenging. But there's fast field. I mean, I had never raced terrain in Tulsa. I think that was their first event in Tulsa, I believe. So there's a good showing for their first time being there. and lots of CTG family. It was basically like, I felt like a Conquer the Gauntlet crowd all over.
Oh yeah, there was more green and black there than I think orange.
Yeah, for
Which is kind
sure.
of funny.
It was comical, and like I said, I worked on build for Terrain, so seeing my crew and build family was fun. But the race, I mean, I thought everything was good. They've stepped it up a little bit with their rig, and they have like a new obstacle that's kind of, I think they debuted it at the end of last season, and we're like changing it and kind of, it's evolving this season, like called Mo Mountain, and it's a take on Olympus, tip of the spear, traverse wall with the balance and like peg traverse thing, if that makes sense. But it was fun. I got outrun very easily, like no doubt running just is not on point, but thankfully because of the rig and the monkey bars at the end, I was able to come back and take, I think I got second at Terrain Race Tulsa. So that was exciting. And then y'all had a like super fast field for the guys.
Yeah, I was a little upset. I was like, oh, terrain race, no one's going to that. And I show up and it's like Nathan's there and Bryce is there and the White brothers who were absolutely phenomenal runners and very good OCR athletes that based out of the Midwest that were there. Brent, one of the KCOCR guys, was there. Right, so like I show up being like, oh, I'm gonna walk away with this, and I was like, oh, all right, I'm gonna have to really try today. And I mean, we took off out of that starting pool so fast. I mean, Nathan was just burning it down. And we had some lead changes over the course, and you know, I'd done terrain for the 24-hour relay they did last year, but I've never done a regular terrain race. I had heard they were, you know, I'd experienced a little bit at the relay, but that was a little bit of a different type of event. And I heard they were a little more Warrior Dash-like, but I thought the obstacles were good. I thought they were really good. You know, like it wasn't Conquer the Gauntlet or Savage Race difficult, but I mean it was well above Warrior Dash. You know,
like 12 balls, yeah.
Yeah, the rig, and they had, you know, none of the carriers were super long or super heavy, but you know, in a 5K time trial essentially, you put a lot of these little things back to back. It was tiring. My heart rate was high. I was hovering around third or fourth for most of the race. At one point, I ended up way back. The last two obstacles, I was in fifth place. And Nathan passed me on the monkey bars super fast. I don't know how he's moving so fast. And when he passed me, I started cursing at him. And then there was that Olympus type obstacle, and then like this balance beam net obstacle. Like, so it was literally 50 meters, and I'm in sixth place. And I was so pissed off that Nathan passed me, like essentially right before the finish line, because I was about to lose to him. So I'm like cursing, and I just put it all in. Flew across that Olympus one. I was going into the last obstacle, which is essentially touching the finish line. I was in sixth place, and I basically ran up the balance beam and haphazardly ran across the net, and then jumped off the top of the obstacle, which is not the safest thing to do. I ended up coming in fourth, so moved up two spaces in about 50 meters.
Like ran across it all crazy.
Yeah, there's a video. You broke up a little bit there, but there's a video of you can see Bryce, me, one of the White brothers, and Nathan all in the obstacle at the same time. First place won by I think like a minute or something, and then second through sixth place were all within 30 seconds of each other, which is I think the closest race I've ever been a part of.
Impressive.
So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Very happy with my performance.
Yeah, well,
considering,
especially going from your long stuff to, like you said, that's a very short distance compared. Yeah, I was gonna say the very next weekend, I think it was the very next weekend was Savage Race Georgia, their spring event they do, and I saw one. It's like one of my favorite.
Cool.
Like most competitive, I think. I don't know for Savage, but just I find that venue brings so many girls, so many guys from Florida, from Carolina, so they get people from all over for the competitiveness. But it was fun because I got to experience like new obstacles for Savage, and they always have new obstacles for the season, which they're very creative and innovative on their obstacles, I think, every year. And like I said, they're one of my favorite top race series out there between like all around the whole package, between competitive wave, good payout, awesome medals and bling, age group stuff, obstacles, festival. It's all always amazing. So I didn't have the best finish. Let's just say that. Lost my band, actually, I think, maybe like a quarter mile to the finish line. They had, well, so, okay, let me explain. Very crazy terrain there, and they were just perfectly placed obstacles. They packed all their last ones were, grip strength, everything. So they had Wheel World, and up until that point, I'd had no issues. Get to Wheel World, and I just go across, like, not even thinking, I'm just gonna do my thing. And I get to the last wheel, and I guess it was a different size, like, pit or area. So instead of the last wheel and then you drop off to the platform, there was like a rope that you had to traverse horizontally. But it was really high of a reach. So I got to the last wheel and was just so surprised. Like, whoa. Okay, so think for a minute. Well, if you lose your momentum on those wheels, you just stop. And you're just, like, dangling. So, like, I'm hanging there, and I'm trying to, like, get my swing on. I'm thinking, like, ninja stuff, swing the legs, whatever. But at this point, I'm just wasting energy. But I didn't want to drop because then you're wet. So I wound up, like, muscling, pulling up, and did the chicken wing grip on the wheel and got up to the rope. And I made it across. So I was like, whew, okay, holy crap. Well, literally 20 feet away was Holy Sheet, and that's one of their new obstacles this year. And it's basically a loose material that looks like a sheet. I mean, it's like, there's like silk, whatever. So hanging kind of horizontally with slack in it. And you have to traverse hands only, not touching the ground. And then from that, there are a couple, ball grip holds that you traverse across. So this was my fit, but I mean, my grip was just shot. And after wheelward, my forearms were so pumped that, like, I always put those, how they put those taped wristbands on your wrist? I always make sure that they're really loose no matter what. My forearm was like, it was tight with the wristband. So I tried Holy Sheet, and yeah, I wound up catching Rachel Waters there, and she said that I think if I got through on my first, like, if I went through, I would have been fourth, which was amazing because, again, I was, like, so slow. Still have obstacle proficiency down until that. And they have their new, like, they're testing out fail pale. So Savage Race, instead of when you cross the finish line in the Elite Wave having to wait for, like, results and everything to be updated on obstacle completion, they basically gave you an extra wristband, and it's like a separate timing chip. And if you fail an obstacle and want to keep on going, you have to take off your Elite timing chip. I had to put my timing chip in the fail pail in the mountains, like, straight from the race. And again, it was my second race. I'm about having fun putting my hands and try every method for hours. So I just took the route, unfortunately, giving it my band. And so then after Holy Sheet was still Colossus and something else. I mean, it, like, wasn't over. The grip, it was brutal. But Savages, I mean, they threw that out of there. I mean, it was like a very big surprise to a lot of people. That course took bands from many people that weren't used to doing that.
Yeah, and that's one of the first Savages of the year, right?
Yeah,
Not the
I
first.
think. Well, so they do Florida first, and then I think that was probably their second venue. I believe. Yeah. I believe it's their second venue. So it was awesome. But they have, I mean, there's other new obstacles. Ram. Oh, geez. Was it Battering Ram? No. I can't.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's like, it also reminds me of a Ninja Warrior type obstacle. It's,
so you have to slide.
It's like a pipe over another pipe, and you slide. And you pipe slider type thing.
And it's pretty cool because the exchange in the middle is like a decent reach. So you don't pull it all the way, like the cord in the beginning, all the way the far, and, like, you make yourself a bigger gap. So you have to be smart there. But again, just always great. New medals this year. I mean, they always outdo themselves with the medals. They're huge and ridiculous and amazing. And you get your little syndicate pin, and for every, if you race multiple Savage venues, you get a syndicate medal and extra pin for each state you go to. So that's unique and cool for them. But yeah, I always.
How's the obstacle with it's like I can't can't remember the actual name of it, but it reminds me of Crank It Up from Conquer the Gauntlet, except you use your feet.
Yeah, pedal to the metal. So that one's cool. So you basically like lay down, you run up to this obstacle and they've got these giant spools and you lay down on your back and use your feet either, one on each side really wide, or you use 2 feet on like one edge. And that's recommended. And as you pedal, you are wheeling in a chain with like a weighted item at the end. But I wouldn't say it's hard. It's more just different and unique because like you're not used to doing that with your feet for an obstacle. I mean, everything's so grip strength focused that it throws you off. And then after you have a high heart rate when you run up to it, and then you lay down, your feet are above your head, and then you stand up to run. Like you have to pull the weight back to the other end, and it's just like this funny feeling. Like it feels like almost when you get up out of shriveled Richard and your brain's just like thrown off, or like if you roll through the barbed wire and you get up, your body's off, and so it's different, but it's fun.
Any issues with the mud on people's shoes and getting traction on that thing, or it wasn't too bad?
No, it wasn't bad because the spools, they're actual like real spools that have slats, if that makes sense. There are kind of cracks and grooves that your feet will catch on, and then it's like rough wood. It's not anything super slick. And I honestly, I haven't done it wet, so I know they just did a venue, North Carolina maybe, that was pretty sloppy and had a lot of issues, but I never heard of that being an issue for that obstacle. It came down to, again, more sawtooth and their grip obstacles they're always the issue when it rains. So I'm going to be at 2 more Savage races this year. I just don't know which ones yet. I just have 2 codes to use. So I recommend everybody try to get to a Savage race. I'll probably be at like Dallas, I think, later in the fall, and maybe the Fall Georgia event. So
yeah, I want to get to a Savage this year. I'm not sure if it's going to fit in with my schedule, though. I got to look at it one more time. But currently I don't have anything listed. But I really enjoyed the one I did last year. I did the Georgia one last year. I thought it was great. And definitely a very good series. Just with ultra-ocr focus, and then Conquer the Gauntlet is my other focus. It's just hard to schedule them in there, So
yeah, totally. And I always recommend to people too, because like a lot of people have price, and I get it. Things are always getting more expensive, but I recommend a Savage race that there's kind of like an insider info that you don't know for your first time. But if you know someone going to a Savage race, they do a deal on like the race day at that venue that you can purchase a code for a future event, and it's cheaper to do that. So like if you have a friend going to, like say this weekend's Ohio, you have a friend going to the Ohio race and you want to register for a later race in the season, have your friend like buy you that code, and then you can pay them. People are always looking for ways to do that. And another thing I just like to tell people, again, like CTG is, all about the community and people. Savage race and the owners actually interact with the community. And so like if you have an opinion and voice things like in their Facebook group, they actually talk to you and get back to you and answer your concerns. And they have Savage Blitz this year. Oh my gosh, totally forgot about that. I haven't done one yet, but it's like their short course, basically doing it on Sundays, and they just take, a handful of their signature obstacles, and they're basically get to run 2 days in a row if you want, or a shorter course instead of their 6 to 8 mile. And they were rolled out with this year, and then everybody requested like a pro wave with prizes and awards, and by the end of the season, they will actually have a blitz with prizes and awards. So that's like right there. Then just they listened to what everybody said, and they delivered. So it's pretty cool.
Nice. Sounds cool. Especially again, I love the variation that OCR brings with, short course blitz type stuff all the way up to 24-hour endurance. I think that's such a wide range of skill sets and activities that people can train and prepare for, and creates a nice, well-rounded athlete. Cool. Speaking of different types of races, I know you also got to attend the final Battlegrounds race, which is flat and fast. What'd you think of your first experience at Battlegrounds, which is also home to a winery?
Yeah, so actually, surprisingly, I did not experience the winery part, just the race. I'm willing to go for a couple of seasons now because, like, I know I've just had friends that have raced there, and I like to try, any season. And finally got there. I will say, like you said, it was super fun. it didn't really play to any of my strengths. Again, I'm not running right now, but like I rely on tricky, challenging obstacles to slow people down. And this was fun, but for me, the very beginning, there was just way too much running, like before any actual obstacles. And then there were some obstacles at the end. They kind of had like they put all their signature good viewing, spectator-friendly obstacles, right at the end, which was cool. They was like festival area where you could see a lot of stuff. Like they had a really fast slide, and like their hardest thing is a decent-sized warp wall. So that was fun because I, passed a couple girls there, but and they have this like I think it's called a gauntlet, and it's basically 5 or 6 different lanes that you traverse across, and it ranges from like a rig style setup with like loop hoses that make it kind of loose, traverse, or there's like a balance option, and you basically kind of choose your own. So that was unique and different. But I think I got 12th place. So again, not my strongest start to a season right now. But I was glad to just go before it is no longer. That was their last event. So the festival was fun, good crowd. But again, it was just too fast for me. People just like took off. Rachel Waters was there from the Green Beret Championship Ambassador team, and the whole Battlegrounds crew. They're just the girls on there are fast, and they know that course. It's kind of like home turf advantage. How we are very proficient in CTG obstacles. They're very proficient on that course. So, but overall it was fun, and I'm glad I got to put a new series on the list before I couldn't. But I need to stick to more of my tricky obstacles, even though Savage Race didn't fare so well. I'm going back to my band again there and CTG. So.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Tough Mudder is going to be using the Battlegrounds venue, so they have an exclusivity agreement. So it'll be a Tough Mudder venue for the next I believe it's 5 years. So we talked about that a little bit when Christopher Balvin was on the podcast earlier this year after Abominable Snow Race. So if you want to hear more about that, you can go back and listen to that episode. That's it for Battlegrounds. I was supposed to go to it, but I was actually overseas. So I had a work trip to Germany. Because I was in Germany, I was going to miss Toughest Mudder South, which was the first Toughest Mudder event because Toughest Mudder West got canceled. I was like, well, I'm missing Toughest Mudder South because I'll be in Germany. But since I'm in Germany, Toughest Mudder UK is like a short plane ride away. So I was busy traveling for most of last month. So I was in Germany for 3 weeks for work. I went to Prague for a day just to see what was going on over there. Which was cool. That was fun. Went to the UK for 4 days for Toughest UK, and then went to Ireland for 10 days with my wife and daughter for vacation. So actually, my wife and daughter were there almost the whole time. Minus the very, very beginning of the Germany trip.
All over, literally.
Yeah. So very busy. Kind of leading up to Toughest UK, I was trying to cram in some more mileage, as I always do. And I did like 20 miles one day. I do, 15 miles the next day in the morning, and then I go down the treadmill to do a couple more. And I was doing an exercise where, like, I'd basically run a little bit on the treadmill, and then I'd do some obstacles in my garage, get back on the treadmill, back and forth, kind of practice doing obstacles with a higher heart rate. And I'd bought one of those PVC pipes that we have at Conquer Fitness. It's just you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the one that you, like, roll and balance on?
Right. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. I hurt myself, right? That's what you're thinking? You're thinking I ate it? I'm
waiting. Where's the fail video for Fail Friday?
I ran into the wall or something, right? I fell and hit my head. Wrong. You're 100% wrong. So I think what happened was, I'd done that thing a couple times, but I did a lot of sets in between, running on the treadmill, and I think it actually bruised like one of the muscles in the bottom of my foot. Because
like on the arch of your foot or something?
Yeah, on the arch of my foot. Because I went for a run the next day. So at this point, I'm on my 3rd day of endurance running. I've done 20 miles Monday, cumulative, broken into 2 sessions. 20 miles Tuesday, plus like a bunch of these rolling balance things. And then Wednesday, I get up to run, and I run for the first 5 miles with no problem. And then, like, my heel is in a lot of pain. Like, a lot. It's the first time I've ever... I don't know if it's the first time I've ever cut a run short, but I stopped my watch a couple times and like tried to stretch it out and couldn't figure out what was wrong. And I was in pain running those last like 2 miles back to my car. But it was like I think it had bruised something on my instep of my foot, and that was tugging on where it connects to the bone on your heel. So I had like a very, very sharp pain in my heel. Yeah, it was like that for like I took something like 9 or 10 days off from running, which is a lot for me. And then I started running again because I had toughest in 2 weeks, and I was like, all right, if I need to know if I'm physically going to be able to do toughest, or if my foot's going to hurt too bad, or like a piece of my muscle on my foot's going to rip off or something, like something crazy. So I started running again while I was in Germany, and it felt like I had a piece of dead skin on the bottom of my heel, but it didn't hurt anymore. And I did that for a couple days, and by the time Toughest Mudder UK rolled around, I felt good again, or I felt good enough where it didn't bother me. And so I went out Toughest Mudder UK and raced there.
That's crazy. Well, hey, at least you rested and listened to yourself, because it sounds like I felt one of those, like, do you ever have that stone bruise, where you just step on something wrong on your heel? And it's just like, that thing hurts, but I can imagine, because if you don't know what we're talking about, the rolling thing he was balancing on, it's like a 3.5-inch PVC pipe that you put it on the ground and you try to traverse, like move it across the ground by stepping and rolling. So it's a Ninja Warrior type obstacle that you've seen. So if you can just imagine how your foot would be curving over that and doing multiple reps, could probably, cause a little discomfort.
Yeah, and I bought it from Home Depot. It's just a regular PVC pipe. It's nothing special. So
yeah.
Anyway, so I go out to Toughest Mudder UK. Different experience again, because different country. So that was kind of cool. We were racing at like the foothills of Belvoir Castle. So if you paid attention at points in the course, you could see this like castle lit up at night. I was staring at the ground most of the time, so I think I saw the castle twice in 8 hours. So shame on me. But the one thing I actually didn't realize it till most of the event was over, and I'm glad I didn't, because it would have affected my performance even more. But it was a lot of running and not a lot of obstacles. So, they still had the same number of obstacles, but compared to World's Toughest Mudder and Toughest Mudder in the U.S. the year before, and even this year, there just wasn't a lot of grip obstacles, right? So Kong, which is it wasn't even Kong Infinity, it was just regular Kong, which is basically 5 rings. A rig consisting of 5 rings. That was open for the first 2 laps, and then they closed it for the rest of the event. And I think it was because, I'm guessing someone hit their head, because there was no water underneath and there was no pad. It was just like hay. I'm guessing someone hurt themselves is why they closed it. So that was only open 2 laps, and then Funky Monkey was open the rest of the time. So over the course of the 8 hours, there was 1 grip strength obstacle per lap, right? Which means like you're typically not failing anything else.
Yeah. That doesn't play in your favor either.
No, that
does not.
You've got
the running, but still, like, you knock out obstacles, so.
Right. So I still did what was normal for me. I still did 40 miles. At all the toughest mudders, I've gotten 40 or 40 or 45 miles. So I still did 40 miles, and usually that puts me in the top 10. And it put me at, I think, 14th for males. I was a little disappointed with placement, a little disappointed with the obstacles. It honestly, it felt like toughest warrior dash. Like, it felt like I was doing a warrior dash for 8 hours. It was a little bit longer, but
that can be tedious.
Devil's Beard, which is essentially a net stake to the ground, was one of the obstacles. It was low crawl. There's a bunch of mud pits. They did have Everest, which was real wet, so that was really hard. And there wasn't a lot of people staying at the top, so that was hard to get up over. The one thing that was interesting was they had electroshock therapy open for, I think, like 2 or 3 laps, which is the one where there's just wires hanging down and you just run through and get electrocuted. And normally that's not in any of the toughest. It's normally just for regular Tough Mudder. So I went through EST, I think, 2 or 3 times.
Oh, gosh.
Which I kind of liked it, because it was like, I don't know, you have no choice but to just go in, right? The other bad one was Arctic Enema. I literally watched Arctic Enema open, and I was the first person in it. Like, the guy opened the tape as I was running towards it, and I was like, "You son of a," it was still stacked full of ice. I mean, like, just a ton of ice in there.
Layers. Yeah.
And I hit the ice, and I probably hit my PR for the 100-meter dash coming out of that thing because I was freezing. One of the other interesting things was there was a stream crossing. You maybe had a 50-meter stream crossing that on the first couple of laps we went through, and it was just so cold. I remember being thinking how freezing it was. But once Arctic Enema opened, you did Arctic Enema and then the stream crossing. And after Arctic Enema, the stream actually felt warm.
Yeah.
So you'd get out of Arctic Enema and you'd get in that stream, you'd be like, oh, it's so nice. When the previous couple of laps, you were dreading the stream. So I thought that was really interesting how your body reacts to the change in temperature and not necessarily the actual temperature to a certain extent.
The water for me was too much. I want to do another one, but still, I don't know. I want to be in a bunch of water. I need sunshine and heat, apparently. So my body says.
You did Philly last year, right? That was the one you were at?
Yeah.
Okay, that was the coldest one of the 3 I did last year. I did Philly, Chicago, and Atlanta. And Philly was by far the coldest.
Damn.
And I was one of the few people. I was one of the few people not in a wetsuit.
Oh, wait, good.
Yeah, last one up, Toughest UK. The other thing that was different was Operation, where it's like a live game of Operation, right? There's a wall with a metal hole in it, and you put a giant pole through the hole and hook a ring on a far wall and bring it back. Just like the Child's Game Operation, except with live electricity. I normally have no problems with that at Toughest Mudder and World's Toughest Mudder. In the UK, the poles were a lot longer. The holes were a little bit bigger, but then the rings on the far wall were was like your rubber bracelets, right? Like a CTG Elite Finisher band.
Yeah.
This year's version, not last year's version. You know how this year's version is thick?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they were real thick, and I would hook the ring, and I couldn't get it off. Right, my pole is on this bracelet, and I'm struggling with it, and sweating, and my delts are getting exhausted, and I'm getting electrocuted. It's a disaster. So
it just sounds awful, and sounds if someone doesn't know what we're talking about very bad in general.
It was the first time I've ever I took the penalty on the last lap because I was tired of getting electrocuted.
Oh man!
And it was it was probably 200 meters before the end, and I knew my placement wouldn't change. So,
yeah. That's brutal.
I was just tired of getting electrocuted.
You're yeah, I'm over it. Moving on. Well, so did you get redemption? Because your next event, I guess, was what you just did last weekend, right? Toughest Michigan.
Yep. So yeah, I would say I did. I loved the Toughest Mudder Michigan venue. It was pretty flat. It was easy to run on. The Toughest Mudder UK was a complete mud bath. I mean, I was slipping and sliding all over the place. And my lap times they definitely got slower more than, I'm usually pretty even on my splits. My toughest UK times were getting a little bit slower, and I think it was because the course was just getting degraded so bad. You were slipping and sliding. But Michigan was nice. It was pretty hard packed. Again, compared to UK has one grip strength obstacle. Michigan had, was it 4 per lap? Which was much better, right? I was oh, thank goodness.
Yeah.
They had Funky Monkey. They had Rope-a-Dope, which is essentially you jump to a rope that's in the water, and you climb up it and then go down, do a diagonal Chivarolian traverse. They had Kong Open, which was the rings, and then they actually changed it to Kong Infinity, which is that rolling. It's like a rolling barrel full of rings into monkey bars.
Oh, no.
And then they had, what was the last one? Oh, Just the Tip, which is kind of like Conquer the Gauntlet's Dead Man's Drop. So it's a horizontal board, and you transition on that for maybe, 10 feet. And then there's a peg, a kind of trailer hitch, a peg, a trailer hitch, a peg, and then another 10-foot board. Not super challenging, but if your hands are wet, it can get pretty hard. And if you're, 6 hours or 7 hours into an event, also can get pretty hard. I thought the obstacle placement was great. My hands were pretty dry on almost all the obstacles. So the only thing I failed over the 8 hours was toughest mud. I was Everest. On the very first lap, it was open because no one had gotten up it yet, and it was just like there was no one sitting on top. So you had to be able to run up it, and it was actually there was a slight incline going up to it, not very much like OCR World Championships 2016 with that warped wall when everyone got stuck.
Oh yeah,
it was kind of like that. It was just like a very slight uphill, and the ramp was already wet, so people were just eating it, trying to get up the wall.
Well, so how'd you finish? Like I said, you got redemption. So what was your final finish for that?
So I ended up finishing with 45 miles in right around 8 hours, plus or minus a minute or two. And I ended up finishing 6th, which is my highest, toughest mudder placement to date. So I was really happy about that. Kind of mixed emotions, though, because 5th place is where the prize money stops. So I was a little upset about that, but at the same time, I was really happy with my performance. Again, the only thing I could have done better is run faster. Right? If I would have run faster, I would have done better, obviously. But I couldn't have. It's not like I look back at my performance and said, "Oh, if I didn't fail that obstacle or had more grip strength or more whatever, I would have done better." It was the only thing I could have changed to do better is I could have run faster. And it's not like I'm not trying to run faster. It's just that's what my body was capable of on that day. So
exactly. But that's awesome to know because I mean that's a strong finish. But again, it's that like 4th place at a normal event, it hurts because you're just one away from that podium, quote unquote, or prize spot. So.
Yeah. And the other thing I really liked about it was in the past, some of the toughest mudders, like random ultra runners will come in and do well. I'm not sure if some of those ultra runners were there. They've been at pretty much every toughest mudder I've seen. But as far as the top 6 guys, I mean, I knew all of them by name. And they're all OCR dudes, either short course or, long course, world's toughest mudder people. So it was, Ryan Atkins, obviously, with 50. Chris Mendoza, 50 miles, another 100-mile finisher at world's toughest mudder. Jesse Bruce, amazing. I think he's Canadian Spartan Pro Team, also super fast. And then it was Matt Hansen, who's finished, top 5 world's toughest mudder, and Nicholas Amund. He's been finishing consistently in the top 10 at toughest mudders. So, and then me at 6th. So
that's a good field to finish where you did. So impressive. Well, you missed a fun weekend though because of that.
I did. One more shout out though. I got to give this one shout out at Toughest Mudder, Michigan.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm gonna say?
Yep.
Those events cost like $250 to enter, so or ish around there. There was a group of 4 Tough Mudder community members. So it was Joe Van Tassel, Joe Herman, Ryan Cray, and Francis Lackner, I think his last name is. They did like two or three laps, waited till Everest opened, got themselves up onto Everest, and then sat there for like 7 hours pulling people over. Which is insane, right? Like, they each paid $250, and all they did was help people for 7 hours. They saved the field a cumulative, like, an absurd amount of penalty miles, right? Because if you could reach their hands, they were strong enough just to haul you up the wall. So, I mean, every time I got to Everest, I was just so thankful they were there. And it was just really, like, a great showing of what OCR and specifically, Tough Mudder within that is about, just helping others. So in response to this, I was like, all right, that was freaking awesome. If everyone chips in like $10, we can essentially repay these guys for their entry, right? Because at some point, like, while it's awesome and I'm sure they had a great time, it's also like, you kind of sacrificed your race for other people.
Oh yeah, totally.
So I did. I started like a little community fundraiser in Toughest Mudder, got a bunch of donations going. And, everyone's shipping in $10, and as I'm recording this, it's up to 600 already. And, I was like, hey, guys, we're going to give you this money to repay your entry costs and, just show we really appreciate it. And, again, it even further show their good spirit. They decided they're going to take that money and donate it to charity to St. Jude's. So, another great good news. Like, it's like double good news story. Yeah. It's pretty crazy.
I mean, it just saved everybody, game changer, kind of, could have changed the event for people's outcome, and then, again, pay it forward, and then they just paid it forward again. So that's awesome. That's what, like you said, Tough Mudder, especially the community, but just in general, OCR, like, take care of each other.
Absolutely. All right, now let's get to what we've been waiting for, which I missed. First Conquer the Gauntlet of the season, Conquer the Gauntlet Dallas. Brenna, how did it go? Give us a rundown.
Man, well, so we've all been waiting so long, it seems. The season started later this year, but didn't disappoint. Waiting was good. Dallas. So the past 2 years in Dallas have been a flood, and that's not even an exaggeration. It have been like flash flooding, horrific monsoon rains. So this year is actually a new venue. And we lucked out, Texas weather, and instead of flash flooding, we were graced with their 100-degree weather, which I loved it, and it was amazing. But that's not exaggerating. It was a very hot day. But dude, CTG, I mean, it was awesome. I've missed those obstacles. I feel at home on those obstacles. I've missed, again, other than Savage, having something with a good challenge that goes, it's not a permanent fixed course and it travels around that you can catch all season. Awesome. So, it was at a BMX, like a bike park venue. So it was flat until they actually utilized the course with the bike hills. The heavy carry, Conqueror's Carry, was on one of the bike hills in the bright sun. So we started 9 a.m. was the elite wave, and I mean, it was already 91 degrees, I think. For early in the season, for some, and just not used to that heat, that right there played a big factor for a lot of the finishes. We had 9 pro team members there, which is awesome. We were missing out on Jeff and Ashley. Did I do math right? Who else are we missing? I don't know. Is that all? I don't know.
It'll come to me.
There was a lot of us, but it was great. So, like I said, the heavy carry was awesome placement because it was on a hill. They had your signature CDG obstacles that everybody knows and loves. Stairway to Heaven was there. Pegatron was there. Cliffhanger, which are their now very known spinning, rotating monkey bars on the incline and decline. Slackline was there, but there were 2 new debuted obstacles. Along with that excitement was just the obstacle placement. So 5 walls, the Walls of Fury, 5 8-foot walls, was in the middle of the race. And and a lot of people know, that's usually towards the end, if not
that one spikes my heart rate so high. It's terrible.
Yeah, so imagine it I'm sure I'll get corrected, say 2 miles in, and it was in festival viewing, and it was just, you think you're okay, cool, I'm not dead, I'm not at the end of the race. Nope, sure enough, that just gets you every time. And I think it was after a creek crossing, so now you're actually getting them wet and muddy for the first, normally people, will knock it or not, but elite wave, because you're in the beginning, you don't have super muddy obstacles, and dirty, but coming out of the creek and then doing 5 walls was brutal. Again, I was just thankful. This was the slowest I've ever started a CTG race. I will always tell people, they ask about bottlenecks and stuff like that. You just need to get faster. You need to get to the obstacles sooner. And this was the first time I've ever not been, top 10 or 15 to an obstacle. So, belly of the beast, I got up on the platform, and that's where you run up the balance beams, and there's a platform, and then you have to traverse underneath the cargo net. I got up there with people, 4 deep in line. I'm thinking, oh geez, Brenna, there was 15 girls in front of me. I was just out of my element, but I was having fun. Great wall. I had to wait for people to get out of my way, and that's their 12-foot wall. And I was just thinking oh my gosh, I'm just waiting, and I can do these obstacles so fast and proficiently. But that wasn't the race's fault. That was just me. So I always tell people, if you don't want to line at obstacles, get there sooner. But the 2 new obstacles, so that's what everybody's been waiting for. And when this video goes out, just go back to the Pro Team page, Facebook page for Technique Tuesday, because Jay rolled out with the Smooth Criminal technique video. So that was the first one whatever. I do these in reverse. So it was towards the end of the race, after Pegatron and before Tarzan. But basically it kind of combined a couple of different obstacles that we've all seen. So it was quintuple steps from, say, American Ninja Warrior. So there was 4 steps into what looks kind of like Dragon's Back horizontal, going in the opposite direction, or like Olympus traversing with a pipe. So you do 4 quintuple steps, and then you have to take your leap onto a traverse wall that you grab the pipe, and it's at an angle. You traverse across that, and then you have another good leap over to another wall with a pipe, and there's a good gap. I mean, if you're small, you have to take, it's more, I think, mental. Again, that's why I think in Dragon's Back, because that whole, like, release and just know that your hands are going to catch you on that pipe and your feet will hit the wall and kind of brace you the other way. So you have to make that leap over to it, and you traverse the second wall, and at the very end, it changes to 3 different rig holds. So there was like a nunchuck and a ball and a rope. So you kind of swing and use those to traverse the last bit, and then you use your momentum from that last hold and have to, like, jump to another pipe traverse wall. So it's pretty awesome. There's a bell at the end. So there's 4 quintuple steps, 3 walls that you traverse horizontally with pipes and rig holds. I wouldn't say super hard. It was tricky. I know, like, Randy Lackey, our Pro Team member, had some trouble there just because it was something new and not used to it. So I think she took a couple tries possibly. And I will say I think it'll be a game changer when it's wet. So, you have the option to like single step those quintuple steps fast and then leap across, or if you don't get the right push off, you just miss the pipe and like face plant on the wall. Or do you take the safe route and like double step or leap and grab the top of the quintuple step to make sure you get it. But again, when it's wet, that's going to be, who knows what will happen with that obstacle. And I can't wait. Like, I don't like a wet race, but I'm curious to see how that goes just for the finishers and belts. And then their other new obstacle that was debuted, again, I love the names, Elephant Graveyard. So you kind of have to use your imagination, and we got pictures, and we'll do again the technique video. But basically, there's a bunch of horizontal pipes in a upward ramp fashion. So you have to like run up them kind of like steps in a way, but if you can't balance on them, the cool part that made it tricky was they kind of had a little slack. So they bounced a little bit, but if you can't run up them upright, there was maybe 5 of them, then you like use your hands and feet and step across, kind of bear crawl-ish across. When you get to the top, there's a horizontal pipe that you use your hands only and traverse. It wasn't long, maybe 8 feet, so you could get like 2 good swings and make it across. And then you go down 5 pipes in like a downward ramp motion. So again, if you have good balance and momentum, you just kind of like single bound them, which that's the route I took. But it also made the people next to me kind of bounce. So there were other people using like downward bear crawl, hands and feet, to be safer. Again, I think it'll be a game changer when it's wet. Who knows? You'll have to, be very cautious and take a slower route. But it uses a mix of balance and grip techniques, so that's exciting. And it was just the race, again, I've missed the obstacles. Having 2 new obstacles are amazing. Slackline was at the end of the race before Torpedo, the signature slide obstacle at the finish line. So, again, Steve, Main Prize, and the new build crew, they came up with a great course and put it together. Awesome. So I'm super excited. I will say, so I went from like 9th or 10th place in the last mile to unofficially 5th place. Obstacles saved me. The rig was over water. They changed up the holds for the guys. I would say the rig for the guys are easier holds, just because I think the rig used to be so hard and beat people down. They made it a little more standard. There's like atomic holds on there, which are really awesome. It's a bit more standard than like totally random lanes, but it was over water. So it's still a game changer. But the girls' side, I feel like they made a little tougher because it used to just be rings and 1 rope. Well, they integrated along with atomic grip holds they have on the girls' side along with the guys' side are the bungees. So you had a couple rings to a bungee to a ring to a rope over water. So I like that change up. And that's why I say fifth place unofficially for me, because I crossed and finished in fifth. And then there's like a rule discrepancy, and it was my own fault. I know better. And the worst part was they were lacking kind of an obstacle attendance, and I had a questionable landing on the rig. I landed on the ground, but then like my leg fell in the water. And I know the rules online for cliffhanger, the monkey bars say if you fall back in the water, it doesn't count. But the online rules for Tarzan are over ground, and if you touch the line with 1 foot, it counts, and you've experienced that. So in the heat of the moment when I was racing, yeah, unfortunately you did it the wrong way. Like in the heat of the moment when I was racing, my foot dipped in, but I landed, and then I asked for an obstacle attendant, and they weren't there, and all the guys that were there, like, told me go, and I was like, are you sure? And when I finished, I knew I didn't feel right, and like I was talking to Nathan, and he said that Dave said at the start line, any water obstacle, if you touch the water, it was a fail. So, like, I kept my feet above the water, which makes sense, but I wasn't thinking about it race brain. So I immediately, when I realized, like, my mistake, I went and told Dave at the finish line that I don't think, like, I finished properly, or I don't know. And he said, no other girls came up and, like, brought it up because there was no one they were a minute behind me, or a couple minutes behind me. And he said, there was no issues or it called or questioned on the course. So, like, we were discussing this, and I was basically being honest. And, again, that's what we like to have. Like, as athletes, we hold ourselves, accountable. So it was fifth, but I don't think the standings won't show that. And it was just one of those, my bad. I should have just redone it. Like, if I've ever been questionable, I'll redo it to make sure I'm 100%. Like, I had a questionable landing on a slack line once. I redid it anyways, just to be sure, because I don't ever want to be, like, accused of that. So I just wasn't thinking. I was trying not to die on course because, again, the dehydration, like, my running sucked. It was hot, and I was so slow. I just wanted to finish the race. So it was unfortunate. I'm kind of mad at myself, but I'm ready for OKC in a couple weeks to redeem myself because, like I said, it wasn't that it was a hard rig. I just was a dum-dum and made a stupid error. So there were other issues. I were just talking about rules and everybody, doing things properly and course marshaling each other, plus the obstacle attendant, and I just don't ever want to be an issue like that. So it was a great race, and I'm bummed and mad at myself and disappointed. But overall, I still did obstacles on my first try. So that was what I was going for, knowing that I haven't done their obstacles. I was nervous about stairway. I was afraid I was going to fail stairway right at the end just because I haven't done it in a while, and it was brutal. But you were missed, Evan, and are you going to be at OKC? You're not going to do OKC, are you?
No, I got another toughest, and then so I'm gonna miss OKC, which also is the team event, which spots are very limited. So if you haven't signed up for that, definitely sign up. But I will be at everything from July onwards for CTG.
Awesome. Well, so speaking of OKC, I'm running Saturday Elite. I don't have a team. No one picked me. So on Sunday, I'm gonna film and try to see if they'll ride me, whatever. So everybody pay attention. If you can't be there, unfortunately, if you're a slacker and don't get yourself to the team event, like you said, get signed up before spots fill up. But I'm going to try and share that live for everybody so you can experience the CTG team event. And then that way you'll make it to Tulsa.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh, and that's my latest news. So to wrap it up, because I know I'm like out of time here. Dallas was the 2nd of June. That was, last weekend, depending on when this comes out. TMX Tough Mudder Extreme Championships this weekend in Virginia. I was supposed to be competing, but again, my off season just was out of whack, so I withdrew from that. But I will be there cheering and watching that go down with some of the most amazing top athletes. So that's exciting for this weekend. But other than that, CTG is mainly my focus for the season, and ready for OKC. And ready to see you at one of them.
Yeah. Okay. Like Brenna said, we've been droning on for a while, so we're going to get this moving along. Brenna, any final shout-outs you want to give?
Yeah, I'll just give a shout-out to one of our CTG Pro Team sponsors, Harbinger Fitness. they're one of those ones that I don't think we see as much on race day necessarily because it's not like a piece of gear or race gear that we use, but I feel like I utilize them in my training, and Ranger Fitness is basically, fitness equipment. So I have a awesome weight vest from them. The lifting different gloves. I have my weighted dip belt to do weighted dips from Harbinger Fitness, along with the grips that you can put on the bar or dumbbells to work on a wider, fatter grip to train. So yeah, Harbinger Fitness, check them out. Most gyms, if you even pay attention to their fitness equipment, like their tricep pull down ropes and all sorts of equipment is from them. So give them a look.
Sweet. I'm going to give a quick plug for my new book, Mud Run Guide's Ultra OCR Bible. So one of the times when I posted it in one of the Facebook groups, someone was like, well, how did you pick the interviewees? So I interviewed 10 people at the back of the book from kind of high-level Ultra OCR people to show what their training, diet, and, attitude on racing is like. So people were like, well, how did you pick these 10 people? And I thought it was a good question, so I wanted to share the answer on the podcast in a public forum. Right? So the answer is, it's a complicated answer. First thing is, when I originally drafted it, I kind of wrote it as a Tough Mudder specific book. So I generally favored Tough Mudder athletes over people who do like Spartan Ultra Beast. So there's a natural bias towards that. And at one point, I actually emailed Tough Mudder headquarters, asked if they wanted to essentially publish the book, with me as an author, because they have a larger reach than I'll have. They never responded. Actually, it was originally a Mud Run Guide book. Then I switched to Tough Mudder, and then back to Mud Run Guide. So there is a little bit of Tough Mudder bias in the book over Spartan athletes. And then kind of the reasons of the 10 people I selected. One, I wanted athletes with different backgrounds. So I wanted ultra runners, ninjas, people who focus on ultra OCR, people who just do a little more focus on short course OCR, people who do selection type events. So kind of a mix of everyone. But the common thread there was OCR had to be your primary sport. So there are plenty of great ultra OCR athletes. Example, Stephanie Bishop or Deanna Blegg. Both of them are World's Toughest Mudder champions, but their primary sport, I would say, is adventure racing over OCR. So that's why I wouldn't have chosen them for the book. For ultra runners, I have Jordan Smith, who paced me at OCR America, Ninja. I have Amy Pagic. For selection type events, I have Logan Nagel and Christina Armstrong in there. And then I also have, for kind of the pro OCR that does real well at short course stuff, I have Rhea Colble, Allison Ty, Ryan Atkins. For World's Toughest Mudder champions in there, I have Ryan Atkins, Trevor Sykos, and Rhea Colble. I also wanted a couple of 100-miler finishers, so Ryan Atkins, Trevor Sykos in there for that. Kind of two, I wanted
a theme.
Yeah. So two, I wanted a mix of people in the top 20 of World's Toughest Mudder. So you can see, I didn't just go from, grab 1 through 5 male and 1 through 5 female and just throw them in there. I wanted people, some people who typically finish first, some people who finish on the podium, some people just off the podium, some people a little lower in the top 20. So you can see, this person does X and gets result Y, and this person does, Y or Z and gets result A, right? So, you can see a difference when you compare them. So I didn't want to just grab the same person. It's essentially carbon copies of the same person, because I feel like you get the same answers. And then finally, I selected people based off of people who have been nice to me and helped me in the past. So again, Jordan Smith paced me for OCR America, so I used him. He's got an ultra running background. Allison Ty, the first time I ever met her, before we even introduced ourselves, she's like, "Oh, I read your articles, I love them." And I was like, "All right then, you're in my next book. Good answer." I was like, I can be buttered up. So yeah, and then obviously I wanted Ryan Atkins in there. The guy's undefeated king of ultra OCR, right? He's never lost, so I feel like that's a mandatory one to get in there. So there's a ton of other great ultra OCR athletes. I know I definitely missed a lot from the Spartan side, especially. Again, because I'm Tough Mudder biased a little bit, but I hope there's no hard feelings out there or anything, or people are upset their friends weren't picked or whatever. But the book can only be so long, and I felt I didn't want to have too much redundancy in there, but I still wanted to get a mix of great athletes. So a bunch of these athletes I already named on the podcast earlier when I was talking about toughest mudder results. Chris Mendoza, Matt Hansen, Robert Killian, all these guys just have done some phenomenal stuff in Ultra OCR. So I couldn't include everyone, but I will say that all those people who do well at these events definitely inspire me. And in the book, I tried to include as many pictures of other people as possible, kind of as a thank you, and include their names, because I think, whether one of the things I love about Ultra OCR is whether you're the first person across the line or the last person across the line at the end of the event, you've still been moving for 8 hours or 24 hours or however long the event was, versus something short like like OCR World Championships, where Jonathan Albin's finishing in an hour and a half and the last person across the line is finishing in 5:59 because there's a 6-hour cutoff, right? So I think Ultra OCR is kind of a unique animal for that. All right, I think we droned on long enough. Sorry for running my mouth for so long. Brenna, final words before we go? Anything?
No, that's it, man. We get these in every once in a while, so y'all just bear with us. We like to catch y'all up on what we do. So thanks for listening, and can't wait for the next one.
All right, we'll see you later.